Comrade, T-14 is fucked. Engine no work. We have no money to fix it. Let's modernize T-90, which is already modernization of T-72. Da, comrade, good idea. But why are you doing that racist Russian accent? Anyway, as we've all seen, T-14 Armata, best tank in the world. So good that the Russians can't even afford it. They've pretty much shut down production and are now focusing on restarting the production of T-80s. The main problems with the T-14 was its X-style engine layout. It's a lot shorter than a V engine for the same amount of power, but it also takes up a lot more space. It's harder to maintain, which, if you're aware of the education of the average Russian person, not a particularly great manufacturing or engineering people. The other issue is the Russian economy, which, as you're aware or vaguely follow the news, not doing too great. So the Russians, in the meantime, before they can get the tooling ready for the T-80, they're focusing on the T-90M. As that racist guy said in the introduction, the T-90M is a modernization of the T-90, which is already a modernization of the T-72. The T-90M features a new, longer gun, which allows it to fire slightly better ammunition, at least compared to the old T-90A. It also has better fire control systems, commander's thermal imaging, as well as a all-new turret design with incorporated explosive reactive armor. So is the T-90M a good tank? Well, if you've been on Twitter the last couple of weeks, you've probably seen some very interesting footage. Regardless of the failure of the Russian army in real life, what is the T-90M like in War Thunder? Well, when it was first introduced, it had the German main seething, as because of the new Sporliner, they were basically saying this tank was going to be unkillable and completely changed the meta at top tier. However, we're now a few weeks after the patch, and the T-90M is largely dead in the meta. No one talks about it, and no one really sees it as a major issue. So is this tank still worth grinding, lads? And is it even as good as the T-80B VM? Well, if you'd like to know the answer to those questions, boys, and some more, stick around for the rest of the video. Alright lads, welcome back. Starting as always, the T-90M is a rank 8 battle rating 11.7 main battle tank located in the Soviet territory. It's going to cost you 400,000 RP points to unlock it, but then you're going to have to purchase it for 1,080,000 Silver Lions. It's going to cost you 310,000 Silver Lions to put it in your lineup, and I would definitely recommend picking up the Expert and Ace qualifications. For 1,080,000 Silver Lions you can get the Expert, and for 2,200 Golden Eagles, the Ace is all yours. Alrighty, so when the T-90M comes stock, we're going to have some ERA on the side of the hull here, and we even get a bonus log. If we go into the modifications, take a look at the stock rounds. We have the 3BK-18M heater fast shell with 550mm of penetration, not bad at all really, but we also get the 3BM42 Mango, which I definitely use over the heater fast shell. In the modifications, the tank is obviously going to come stock, so I'd get the parts and FP first as usual, then the night vision, then the laser warning receiver and laser rangefinder. I'd skip over the missile, it's not really that useful. I then make my way down until I can get the 3BM60 and then just unlock the rest at your discretion. We also have an additional ERA kit, which as you can see just adds some ERA blocks to the side of the hull, but unfortunately we do lose that log. Truly disappointing. While the M in the T-90M stands for modernized, the designers clearly didn't know what a reverse gear is, as this tank still has the god-awful reverse speed of 5 km per hour. Luckily though, the engine has received an upgrade, and we now have a maximum power of 1,130 horsepower. Combined with the vehicle's weight of 50 tons, it gives us a power to weight ratio of 22.6 horsepower per ton, which is pretty low to be honest. But if you're used to driving the T-90s or the T-72s, it basically feels exactly the same. Rather slow acceleration, but with a decent top speed of 60 km per hour. The tank also comes equipped with 12 smoke grenades, which you are going to need to use frequently. As I've said, you cannot reverse out of danger. These smoke grenades are fired from the top of the turret and fire 2 at a time, giving you 6 total pops of smoke. So what about the survivability of the T-90M? Well, we take a look at this cutaway, we can see quite a lot of things really. We've got a lot of ERA, we've got a lot of Sporliners, and we've got a lot of composite armor. Let's look at the Sporliners first. In this image, we can see that we have a Sporliner running down the entire length of the hull, as well as all of the sides of the turret as well. There is also spore liners behind the frontal armor sections, which are obscured by the turret and the hull's upper armor plate. This spore liner makes it quite hard to kill the tank on a side aspect shot, but from the front, as we'll soon see, the same weak spots still apply, which allows you to easily convert Russian conscript tankers into Russian cosmonauts. The tank also comes plastered in explosive reactive armor. It's found on the upper frontal plate, the turret front, the sides of both the hull and the turret, and we even have ERA in the mud flaps. But gone is Contact 1 and Contact 5, and in comes Relict. This gives us 250mm of protection from kinetic energy projectiles and 600mm against chemical weapons. So we know that the T-90M has lots of armor protection on the ERA. As you can see with the DM53 round fired by the Leopard 2A7, there's no parts of the ERA where we can penetrate. But we still have the lower frontal plate, which is an easy one-shot kill. Hopefully we don't hit the driver's... Oh, we did take out his bollocks, poor boy. We also have the driver's port as well up here, which again is just an easy penetration to pretty much DM33. You can also go through the turret front here, which is going to knock out the gun. It's not really going to knock out a crew member per se, but it just does, well, not immobilize, but it takes out the ability for the tank to shoot back at you. They're the main spots to shoot the tank from the front. From the sides, due to the spore liner, it is a little bit hard to kill this thing, especially on oblique angles like this. As you can see, we only knocked out the gunner there, and we didn't get an ammo detonation. From the side though, if you look to find this thing and shoot it just here, you usually are going to kill everyone in the turret, which is an easy one-shot kill. Same thing from this side, just find the smoke grenade launchers or whatever this thing is and shoot here, and you're going to kill the tank in a single hit. Unlike most other Soviet tanks, I wouldn't recommend shooting the lower thing here. It generally isn't going to ammo ramp the tank. I find it just passes straight through and does minimal damage. So the mobility is pretty bad, the survivability is also pretty mid, but what about the gun? Well, we're coming equipped with a 125mm 2A46 M5 cannon. This basically means the breech is a little bit larger, allowing for a longer saber round to be fired, at least compared to some of the earlier T-90 tanks. Unlike the T-80 series, we are still using the T-72's type of autoloading system, giving us a constant reload rate of 7.1 seconds. The gun is also fully stabilised, allowing you to easily shoot on the move, and we have 6 degrees of gun depression and 13 degrees of gun elevation. This doesn't really allow you to put your great turret armour to good effect being hull down, but it does give you pretty good brawling capabilities. We can carry 40 rounds into a battle, with 22 rounds being classed as first stage ammunition. You don't really want to take more than 23 rounds into a battle anyway. Unlike a lot of the early Soviet main battle tanks, the Russians have figured out what a turret drive is, giving you with an ace crew a turret rotation speed of 40 degrees per second. This allows you to rapidly swing that turret onto a target, giving you pretty good reaction times in the T-90M. We've already covered the stock heater fest and the stock saber round, but we also have 3 other rounds available to us. The 3OF-26 is a high explosive shell with 42mm of explosive penetration, due to its warhead of 5.24 kilos of TNT. Pretty good for splashing the roofs and driver's ports of Abrams and Leopards, but I wouldn't recommend using this round for newer players. We then also have the 9M119M1 tandem anti-tank guided missile. It travels at 445 meters per second, it is pretty quick, it has a maximum range of 6 kilometers, and can penetrate 850mm of armor. Not particularly useful, to be honest. I don't really know why the Russians are obsessed with ATGMs. I guess it is just for longer range engagements, but Russian optics are nowhere near good enough to engage something at 6 kilometers. Anyway, our final round and the go-to round of this tank is going to be the 3BM60 Svinets 1, I guess, or Svinets 2, whatever it is. I don't really know. One's tungsten, one's depleted uranium. I think this is the tungsten one. Anyway, it travels very fast at 1,660 meters per second. That's a fair old distance. We can also penetrate 335mm of angled armor at point blank range, which is pretty good, to be honest. It's not as good as the DM53's 377mm, but 3BM60 is a fantastic round in War Thunder. It penetrates well, it's quite heavy, it creates a lot of spalling, and usually get a one-hit kill if you shoot center of mass on a NATO-style tank. The gunner's optics are pretty good, but they are a little bit zoomed in for my liking, with a base zoom of 4 times and an optional zoom of 12 times zoom. Again, it's a little bit too zoomed in for me. I find I get tunnel vision quite a lot. I prefer the wider, more like 2 power zooms. The T-90M also features a commander's optic, which also has a 4 and a 12 times zoom, and both the gunner and commander get second generation thermal images for their respective viewers. T-90M also has 2 machine guns. We have a rifle caliber mounted coaxially and a 12.7mm gun controlled by the commander. Backtracking a little bit to the thermals, and it really does explain my issue with the T-90M. This tank only gets second gen thermals for the gunner and commander, which isn't really groundbreaking, considering that the T-80BVM also gets second generation thermals, and that tank's been in the game for well over a year now. The BVM also gets 3BM60 for its main gun. It also has a faster fire rate and is incredibly much more mobile around the battlefield. Granted, it doesn't have a spall liner or nowhere near as much explosive reactive armor or survivability, but for any long-term players out there in War Thunder, you know that mobility is by far better than armor values at top tier. That's why the Japanese are still such a good nation, despite having basically paper-thin armored tanks. Because you are so slow, pretty much every other main battle tank is going to be a huge issue for you. You aren't really going to be able to get into strong positions at the start of the game, and basically the T-90M is just a glorified backup vehicle in my opinion. It's nowhere near fast enough to be aggressive. It's not got anything going for it in terms of its gun, as the T-80BVM basically matches it in every way. And I just cannot look past the reverse speed. 5 km per hour going backwards is absolutely abysmal, and the Russian engineer should unironically be shot for it. There is no reason whatsoever that this should be a thing in modern day tank. In War Thunder, the reverse speed is going to get you killed more than anything, as you just can't push over a hill. You can't jockey with an enemy around a corner to try and get them to fire first and miss, for example. You kind of have to full commit going forwards. You just cannot get back into cover. It is the biggest thing that pisses me off in top tier. You have a bad reverse speed, you have bad mobility. It just kills the tank, for me at least. Because of this, I wouldn't really recommend this tank. The T-80BVM is pretty much better in every way that matters, and this tank just seriously did not tickle that sweet spot for me. That's a rather weird analogy. I just cannot get over that reverse speed. It's god awful. I'd even say that the T-80U is probably a better backup tank, or the T-80UK or UM. Those are much better backup tanks, as they are just a lot faster, and they still have a decent gun. Anyway lads, thank you very much for watching the video. Be sure to let me know down below in the comments what you think about this tank, and whether I'm talking shit, or whether you like the video. Be sure to leave a comment telling me how you feel. Finally, just like to say a big thank you to all my YouTube members: Lola Alphonse, Tans, Deboa LX, Dr. Bob, Tomsa013, Schlunty, Van Halen, Diogenes, and newest YouTube member, Econ. Thanks again lads for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.